You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Feel like who art ed?
We'll try to slice it.
Who art is Mr. Wood art ed me?
Good. Either way, it's ambiguous. It works on so many levels.
I know.
That's off to a great start.
Welcome to Who Arted Weekly Art History for All Ages. I'm your host, Kyle Wood, and today we're going to be looking at Nick Cave. Now, before I get started on this episode, I want to remind everyone, check the links in the show notes because it is Arts Madness season. Right now, if you go to whoartedpodcast.com/vote, you can weigh in on your favorite artists in this year's tournament. We've got 64 artists, which are going to be narrowed down to just one over the course of 6 weeks and 6 rounds of voting. And if you fill out the prediction form this week, you're going to have a chance to win a gift card when it's all done. At the end of the tournament each year, I randomly select some listeners who correctly predicted the outcome and send out some Amazon gift cards. So be sure to go to whoartedpodcast.com/vote to fill out the prediction form, and beginning Monday, February 24th, you can start voting in the round 1 matches. Nick Cave was born February 4th, 1959 in Fulton, Missouri. He's a contemporary American artist known for his Soundsuits, wearable sculptures, vibrant and intricate constructions that both conceal and empower the wearer. His work bridges culture, performance art, fashion, and social commentary, making him a unique figure in the art world. Cave grew up in a large, close-knit family. He was one of 7 boys. His mother was a social worker, and his father worked in a concrete plant. For the Cave family, like many large families, resourcefulness was a necessity. He and his brothers learned to make things, repair things, and share what they had. Cave has often spoken about how they would alter and repurpose their hand-me-down clothes, giving them a new life and a personal touch. This early experience with textiles, transformation, and making do with what was available would lay the groundwork for his later artistic practice. Growing up in Fulton, Missouri during the 1960s and 70s, Cave also experienced the realities of being Black in America. Though the civil rights movement had achieved significant victories, racial prejudice and inequality remained deeply embedded in society. This awareness of social injustice and the feeling of being both visible and invisible would later become a crucial theme in his art. Nick Cave's artistic talent was evident from a young age. He excelled in visual arts and performance, demonstrating a natural flair for both. And he attended the Kansas City Art Institute, graduating in 1982 with a BFA, a Bachelor's of Fine Arts. The school provided a rigorous environment where he could hone his skills in fiber arts, learning techniques like weaving, dyeing, and he practiced assemblage, or assemblage if you're fancy, the art of putting together diverse materials to create a 3-dimensional work. During this time at the Kansas City Art Institute, Cave was also exposed to a wide range of artistic influences. He was drawn to the work of artists who explored identity, culture, and the body, including the pattern and decoration movement, which challenged the traditional hierarchy of fine art by embracing crafts and decorative elements often associated with, quote, women's work. This resonated with Cave's own background and his interest in non-traditional materials. After college, he stayed in Kansas City, where he maintained a studio. He said for the first year, he didn't really accomplish much. There's no manual telling you how to make a career as a groundbreaking artist. While many young aspiring artists go off to New York, in those early days, Cave couldn't afford to go. So he held with a group of other local artists who exhibited together and learned from each other. To pay the bills, he got a job designing window displays at Macy's. He says he had some job security and insurance, but he wasn't happy. He couldn't see himself in the corporate world. He got a full scholarship to the Cranbrook Academy of Art, and before he even graduated, he was offered a job at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. He would make Chicago his home for decades to come. Now, a pivotal moment in his career was his creation of the first Soundsuit. And that came after the Rodney King beating by LA police officers. For listeners too young to remember, in March of 1991, police attempted to pull Rodney King over for speeding on the highway. He attempted to get away, and when they eventually got him pulled over, they pulled him out of the car, and 4 officers stood over him, beating him with their batons as King lay on the ground. Part of this brutal incident was captured on video and broadcast worldwide. It sparked outrage and protests against police brutality and racial injustice. All of this had a profound impact on Cave. He described feeling vulnerable and thinking about what it means for human beings to be so callous toward their fellow man. He said he was thinking about that feeling of being cast aside while walking in the park, and he noticed a twig on the ground. He saw that twig as a symbol of the discarded. He began collecting more twigs and brought them back to his studio. He then had an idea to create a sculpture, a kind of protective armor made entirely of these twigs. As he worked, he realized that the sculpture made a rustling sound as he moved. That sound and movement added another dimension to the work. This was the genesis of the Soundsuit. It was a direct response to a specific act of violence, but also the systemic racism it represented. It was a way for Cave to process his own feelings of fear, anger, and vulnerability, and to create a symbol of both protection and empowerment. And this work did not stop with that first suit. Over the years, Cave created around 500 Soundsuits using a vast array of materials, including found objects, twigs, buttons, beads, sequins, toys, ceramic figures, metal pieces, countless other discarded and repurposed items. Along with textiles, fabrics of all kinds, vintage textiles, doilies, everything you could think of, even human hair, both real and synthetic. The suits are often oversized and completely cover the wearer's body, obscuring their race, their gender, their age. The idea is to give some anonymity. The Soundsuits create a second skin, a barrier between the wearer and the outside world. And this isn't just a protection from physical danger, but also a protection from judgment and prejudice. But I think the real beauty is that they're not just defensive. They're transformative, like ceremonial costumes. They're incredibly flamboyant and attention-grabbing. The vibrant colors, intricate details, the rustling, rattling sounds they make when moved, they create a powerful visual and auditory spectacle. The Soundsuits are assertive, demanding to be seen and heard. This duality of protection and projection is at the heart of their power. The Soundsuits allow the wearer to transcend their everyday identity and become something else, something larger than life. It's like a form of camouflage, but paradoxically, it makes the wearer more visible, forcing the viewers to confront their own preconceptions about identity and difference. While the Soundsuits are impressive as static sculptures, they truly come alive in performance. Cave often collaborates with dancers, musicians, and community members to create elaborate performances in which the Soundsuits are worn and activated. These performances are not just spectacles. They're deeply rooted in community engagement. Cave frequently works with local organizations and schools, using Soundsuits as a tool for education, empowerment, and social change. Because he believes that art has the power to bring people together, to spark dialogue, and create positive change.
This concludes this week's episode of Who Arted, part of the Airwave Media Podcast Network. If you found this tolerable, please leave a rating or review on your favorite podcast app. You can find images of the work being discussed this week and every week on social media at Who Arted Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and of course on the website whoartedpodcast.com. Podcast done.